Welcome to the Lessons Learned for Vets podcast page. My name is Lori Norris, and I created this show for you. I want this show to serve as a source of advice and guidance as you navigate the military transition path. I want you to know that you're not alone with what you're going through, and I want you to know that there is only one right way to transition out of the military, and that is the way that you choose to do it. We're just here to help smooth the path ahead of you and advise you about any bumps in the road that you might come across. So if you enjoy this video, please give us a like, subscribe to our page, and I encourage you to go to your favorite podcast provider and listen to the full episode of this show. You can also visit our website at www.ll4forvets.com. I promise you will get some great information. I think that, every company moves a little differently, right? Their timeline can be very, very slow. And also some companies keep your application in the system. And so you may not make it on the first round, but they'll reach out to you down the road. So I guess, like you said, always be open to those opportunities that are coming your way. That method of just rapid firing the same resume to so many different people, that can get really disheartening really fast, can it?
You think cover letter and resume, you try to, everybody tells you tailor them and you think that you're tailoring them, but I probably, if I'm really honest with myself, I didn't tailor them enough in some cases, or really spend the time to really either reorder things or just reword things a little bit in order to get the right bites on some of my stuff. But I thought, I had a good cover letter. To me, it was good. And obviously some friends and family or whatever said, yeah, it's good or whatever. But I think for sure there is a lot to going into that real analysis of what are they looking for and really highlighting how you can do that, whether that be changing the order of things or just using the words that they're using in the job description. I think I might have undersold some of that. I kind of did the assumption I know, if you read this, it's obvious I did that type of stuff. So why do I need to change the words?
They'll know exactly what I meant when I said I was at West Point, right? So, and if you're doing it the right way, to be honest with you, you shouldn't have time to apply to any more than 5 to 10 jobs a week.
Yeah. And I was doing a lot more than that, but it was because I was using the same materials a lot of times.
And I can promise you that if you really take the time to research the company, figure out what their needs are, what's their culture like, really dig into the job posting itself, do your research, kind of conduct that SWOT analysis, right, of their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and really target and focus a package to that job. You're only going to have time for, like I said, 5 to 10, but you'll get more interviews from sending out those 5 to 10 than if you rapid fire 50 a week.
I definitely see that now. As a matter of fact, again, back to my daughter, where I think it was Amazon, where they're kind of have some detailed process when you apply, where you're taking quizzes and answering questions and things. And she applied to 2 different jobs. The first time she just took the quiz test, whatever, didn't hear anything back. The second time she did, but there was even Amazon even offered a training package, to prepare for your application. She went through it and she's like, well, when they ask a question like, oh, am I the type of person that makes sure I get things done 100% correctly before I turn it in, or do I get it done to a 70% and move it? And she's like, well, I would think it would be 100%, but really, if you read what they prepare for you, it's the opposite. And she's like, I never knew that. And the second time she went around, she did use those words and those attitudes and those thought processes in her application, and she got an interview. So I don't know how I was that naive, but maybe it's cocky or arrogance or whatever, but I messed up a lot, I think.
As a professional resume writer as yourself, what are your thoughts on the summary section? Is it a waste of space? Should I use that for something different? Just what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I want to talk first about the resume skimming process, and then we'll talk about that summary section, okay? So I think that, you're right. That is kind of the average that people say. They, in the first 6 to 10 seconds of looking at a resume, they make a decision if they're going to keep reading or not. And so we know that they're skimming it, right? So they're kind of just skimming down the resume. And so I've had to become a student of how people kind of skim through documents and try to figure out how do we capture their attention and hold them there. So I do have some strategies to help you make it through that initial scan. And now oftentimes by the time it gets to that recruiter or the hiring manager, it's also already been run through an applicant tracking software. ATS isn't making the decision for the recruiter, but it's kind of racking and stacking the resumes based on keyword relevance and just their own criteria of how they're looking at the resume. And so the recruiter now is looking at, okay, I've got, these top 30, whatever the number is that I'm going to look at personally. And so one of the things we want to do is make sure we've translated our job titles and we've put those translated job titles in bold font to the left of the paper. And so that they can very quickly skim down our job titles, our translated job titles, and see if they're relevant and something that they even feel like is worth reading about. That's one way. Then we also want to do primarily write in bullets, not a lot of paragraphs. Like you can have short, 2-3 line paragraphs, but mostly bullets. And I really don't recommend going more than 5 to 7 bullets per job, and then front load those bullets with your results. So as they read those first 3 to 5 words of each bullet, if it's, increased employee retention, 27%, reduced recruiting costs, $3 million. I mean, I'm just making things up now, right? But if they see those results front loaded on your resume, they're more likely to read the entire thing. And so those are just some ways for you to very quickly make it through that scan. So we want to capture their attention and make sure that they stay, right? And the reason that they don't give you that much time is because there's so much irrelevant information that people are putting out there that they're like, I'm just going to move on and find the relevant person, right? So you want to make sure right up front, you are showing that you are a relevant candidate with experience that they need. So now that brings me back to your summary question. And one of the ways that you can really clearly showcase that you are a valuable candidate is through your summary. And I know that the summary gets a bad rap, and a lot of recruiters will tell you, it's not necessary, get rid of it. Because they're not necessarily spending a lot of time there because they skim over that summary and go right to your job titles. But at the very top of your resume, I want you to, instead of using put the word summary and then have this paragraph of fluff, I want you to have a headline that tells me right at the top, what are you looking for? What kind of job are you seeking? And so start off with a headline and a tagline that summarizes that you are looking for the job that they are hiring for. You would be amazed at how many people just send the same resume and so full of irrelevant information that they want to know right up front that you're the right candidate. You know what your summary is for. It's a place to very quickly and shortly encapsulate your best highlights of qualifications. But more importantly, it should very clearly communicate what job you're looking for. And so that's what that summary is for. So yes, I believe in it. However, use it to the best of your ability to communicate that you are a targeted, focused candidate. You know exactly what you're looking for. And that's where, when you target and focus your resumes to different jobs and companies, that's really where you want to start, so that headline matches up with the job that you're applying for.
It's like a movie trailer. You're trying to tease them to want them to watch the movie or to actually read more about your resume.
You have some key advice about how to read and utilize job postings. So let's talk through that a little bit.
Yeah. So job postings, it can be very daunting, I believe. And the reason why I think that is because there's just so much information in a job posting. One of the very first things that you see in a job posting is this big, long description of what you basically would do in the job every day, which is important for you for me as the applicant. Like that's important for me because that makes me know whether or not I want to do the job.
Yeah.
The importance of reading it is knowing that that's important for you as the applicant. The bottom stuff is what's important to the company or the corporation. And then that's the required, the desired, and the other desired qualifications. And then I think what a lot of people get wrapped around about is reading that. Required qualifications are 100% required. You have to hit that. 100%. That's where you want to do a lot of your match and mirroring words, and you want to get that out of the way right away in your resume. I want to make sure that recruiter knows I not only meet, but I exceed those qualifications as much as possible. Desired qualifications, although they're desired, you don't necessarily have to have all of them. And I know that's kind of weird. And everybody's like, well, what do you mean? It's desired qualifications. What most people don't know, and I'm giving away trade secrets right now, not illegally, but what they don't know is that majority of job descriptions, both required and desired, are auto-populated. Anytime you build a job requisition, it auto-populates. So it's just stuff that's in there all the time. So earlier we talked about required. You want to make sure you show that. And then you want to meet as many desired qualifications as possible. But what people don't understand is the other desired qualification. I think a lot of times of what I see a lot, especially with veterans like myself, is they see other desired. They're like, oh, that's just icing on the cake. I don't have to have that necessarily. But what a lot of people don't realize is sometimes those other desired qualifications are even more important than any of the desired qualifications. And what I mean by that is we talked a little bit about how required and desired are auto-populated. And other desired qualification is something that a hiring manager took the time out of their schedule to say, hey, recruiter, I know we have this, but what I'm really looking for is this, this, and this, which becomes your other desired qualification. So being able to understand that, and then in your resume, you can account for that other desired qualification. You now actually stood out above a bunch of other people because you were able to read that and understand that. And then obviously reading it, you have to be able to match and mirror those keywords into your resume. So I know that's a lot, but really that, like I learned from you, resume writing is a science and a skill. Reading a job description, both required, desired, other desired, I truly believe is a science and an understanding that will get people way above where they recently are if they take the time to understand that.
You had several senior leaders tell you directly, you'll never make it as a civilian. You need to stay in the military. So how do you counteract that and really focus on kind of educating transitioning service members?
I mean, I think you can go back to almost what you'd want to teach any kid is that your actions are going to speak louder than your words. I could have went and had an argument with any of those leaders and told them that they were wrong. But to be honest, I didn't know if they were wrong. I didn't know. Maybe I can't make it, but to me, it's worth a shot. You know, I can try. So I really think just the best way to kind of, for lack of a better term, stick it to them is put your actions to work.
Yeah.
Create a plan, come up with something, connect with people, network. You need to use the resources. There's so many resources we have. And sometimes it's just, you have to figure out where those resources are and how to get them. And that process starts early. And I think that's one of the things that's a big fault. And especially with, from my point of view, I was an E6. I was kind of that middle ground. I wasn't senior leadership, but I wasn't junior enlisted either. And to watch like junior enlisted go through transitions where, they're not allowed to go through a lot of these programs because there's mission requirements. And I understand there's those mission requirements, but maybe it's time for us to readjust that time frame for SFL TAP. That's what is in the Army. Maybe we need to start that process even earlier and allow these soldiers to start it earlier. Or we need to be able to block out and say, hey, the last 6 months of this soldier's time, like it needs to be focused on their transition. And I think that it would be a huge, huge benefit to do that. Just really creating a plan and not stopping and figuring out, hey, if this part of my plan fails, this is my plan B. This is what I need to do. Here's my contingency. Just like everything we do in the Army, you don't make one mission plan and you don't say, hey, if it doesn't work, well, mission failed. Like, no, you always have a contingency. And I think you need to do the exact same thing in your transition.
Hey, thank you for watching the video today. Have you subscribed to our channel yet? Did you leave us a comment? Have you listened to the full episode of the podcast on your favorite podcast provider? We sure would appreciate it if you would do all of these things to support us today.